Welcome, bienvenue. Welcome to another property live stream with, of course, Hamish McClare of Search Convey. Special guest today, Heather Poole-Gleed, and this is IPSA Kind of Magic, the Association of Independent Personal Search Agents, currently chaired by Hamish, CEO, Chief Exec, Heather Poole-Gleed. Lovely to have you both here. It's a bit like matter and antimatter. You so rarely get them in the same place at the same time. I'm scared of an explosion. Today's topic, as we always talk to all of you new listeners, because we've had a whole host of them over the last few months. To all you listening, if you are in the property search game, as it were, you might consider wanting to join this organization because they are what I refer to as the kite mark of searching, certainly personal agent from the personal agent point of view, and they are the antithesis of all things factory conveyancing. It's all about personal searching, producing what I refer to as a John Lewis style approach, where you get the best of the search, not just everything. Which means you can really make those decisions far quicker. They turn around searches technically much quicker than other people seem to be able to, which amazes me because they're actually going into more depth. But anyways, it's about personal relationships. I think you'll agree about building those relationships often over years. Most of the IPSA members are gamekeepers, or poachers turned gamekeepers, or the other way around. Who actually know that side of the industry inside out. But enough of that. Today's topic is something that people within the industry. Oh, Michelle Poller has jumped in to say, and I'm watching too. Oh, thank you very much.
She could be joining us, but never mind.
well, it's lovely to see you anyway, Michelle. Thank you for taking the time. Today's topic is the money lenders list and standards. It all sounds a bit Shakespearean to me. The money lenders list and standards. And of course, to start us off, as ever, Hamish McClare.
Well, somebody did actually accuse me of being somewhat old school the other day there for some strange reason. I don't know quite why it was. I always look at this, what the topic of conversation today, as the money lenders handbook, as it used to be in years past. But Heather is far more up to it. It's the UK Finance Lenders Handbook, as she will sort of remind me. There's all sorts of things you could call it. Money lenders, you could call it mortgage lenders. And what it actually is, it's a very, very useful document for solicitors to establish. And of course, anybody who's in the independent sort of search world, for example, if they want to sort of find out if a particular lender will lend money to somebody who carries out, if you like, a personal search, as we used to call them, but regulated searches. We need to make this classification clear. We've done it often enough on our podcast through it, so that we are, all our searches are regulated searches. And Heather in particular makes sure about that too, because she's one of our gatekeepers there to make sure that people are doing things the right sort of way. Anyway, this money lenders handbook, what it suggests is all of those people, or all of those lenders who will lend money to certain people to carry out sort of regulated searches. Now, the thing is, one would have thought, with being such an important document, it should also mention, if you happen to be a member of IPSA, we will lend money. But they don't do that. I mean, we're much more subtle than that, because what we are actually, all members of IPSA are also members that are also regulated by the PCC, the Property Codes Compliance Board. And this is why I wanted to differentiate, because we can explain, if you go through that money lenders handbook, which fortunately we've got Heather here to speak about, so she can speak a bit more about the serious side of things. But the basic thing is the PCCB comes up quite a lot. Regulated searches come up quite a lot within that handbook. And so all members of IPSA are in actual fact appropriate to those particular sort of lenders, which is a very, very significant numbers. There are things, the Bank of China, I don't think accepts regulated searches, but we probably don't mind too much about that. But anyway, we best let Heather sort of sorted out because she knows the technical side of these things, which is why she's in the position she's in, of course.
Well, Heather, welcome to the show. And
Thanks, Gareth.
apparently, you bring the serious side to the
I'm very serious, Gareth, as I'm sure you're very well aware.
I'll sit up straight. So, Mrs. Poolgleed, can you please tell me regulated searches? First of all, that, and second of all, this handbook. How does it truly help?
Okay, so the handbook exists so that when the conveyancer takes on a file and they're looking to order the searches, they can go onto the mortgage lender's handbook and check which mortgage lender of many hundreds. They look at that mortgage lender and it will tell them there under part 2, there's a question which says, does this mortgage lender accept personal searches, or what we call regulated searches? And the answer to that question is dictated by that lender. They decide what they want. And so that answer might say, yes, we do, or it might say, yes, we do, provided that the search provider is subscribes to the search code and is regulated by the Property Codes Compliance Board. And that is obviously the bank or the lender's choice what the answer is in that section. And if it says PCCB regulated, well, then all IPSA members fit that category, because to become an IPSA member, as well as having to pass our exam, you have to be a subscriber to the search code through the Property Codes Compliance Board, and you have to have your £2 million PI cover, etc., etc. So that mortgage lender's handbook kind of helps to boost the integrity of what we do. If a major lending association says, well, we will accept searches, but only if they're provided by a company that is PCC regulated, well, that's an IPSA member to you and me. So that's good, and that boosts the integrity of what we do.
By the way, I've seen a whole raft of people come in to check us out. To anybody wondering what this channel is about, it's the Association of Independent Personal Search Agents. If you're going to buy a house, buy a property, one of the processes you go under is to do searches. And it probably wouldn't be you, probably ordered by the solicitor involved. And if they do that, these searches help people make proper buying decisions on whether they're going to go ahead and buy a property or indeed spend a lot of their fortune on it. Remember that buying a property is still, would you agree, Heather, probably the largest single expenditure that any family would ever undergo?
Yeah, I think unless you were thinking of buying a super yacht or something, then yes, it probably is the biggest expenditure.
Well, of course, I have the house and the super yacht, but anyway, moving on. So now that we've got our search, all right, being mentioned that way indirectly, as it is through the mortgage lender's handbook, that means that I would have thought IPSA members have a leg up in a way, because they are the ones who have that quite much.
Yes, exactly. Obviously, IPSA members aren't the only people that are PCCB registered, but all of our members have to be. So if it's almost like there's a bit of education needs going out here to conveyancers to say, if you come across this statement which says, yes, we will accept searches provided they come from a firm that is PCCB regulated, they need to understand that also means IPSA. So we need to get that message across to people that, if you're looking at an IPSA member, they automatically fulfill that requirement. And that would be a really good education piece to do, I think.
I also would like the world to understand that IPSA members do not compete with each other. They all have their own special areas, their special geographic regions, and they usually are in those regions because they've built up a relationship with the authorities in that region. Therefore, that's one of the reasons why the amount of time you require for a search can often be a lot shorter, is it not?
It is. It's about relationships that we've built up over time. It's also about knowing where to look for things and knowing what to look for. And if you concentrate on a geographical area, then you have that knowledge. It becomes your backyard, and you know exactly where to find the information, what to look for. Nowadays, with so much data available online, it would be tempting for me to say, well, I can cover the whole country myself. I can work it out. But I wouldn't want to do that because I know there are other members of IPSA that are far more knowledgeable in those other areas. So if one of my clients has a search request for a property in Newcastle or in Cornwall or in South Wales, I would go to one of our members that is in that area because I would know that that information was, I would be more confident that that information was accurate and complete than if I'd tried to do it myself.
Or Bicester, for instance.
Or Bicester, obviously. Sorry, Hamish.
Sorry, Hamish. So okay. So one might be, you go and buy. You're about to buy. So you go to a solicitor. And the solicitor has a number of options, don't they? They could go the factory conveyancing route, where they plug it in, hit the button, out comes 2 tons of information, which can often be death by 1,000 cuts because you don't know what to look at. Or they could go through a personal search agent. So what's the difference in the information that you guys would provide than, for instance, a factory conveyancer might?
Well, depending on the factory conveyancer, often their model is high volume, low price. So they get a lot of work. They're then not often able to complete that work in a reasonable time frame. So often they will employ delaying tactics, because they'll realise that this file's been sitting here for 2 months and nobody's done anything. Oh, let's just ask a few additional questions and that will delay us for a bit longer. So that's the one thing. The other thing is with some of the factory organisations, they do a lot of data scraping. And that means that they're using various programs to collect data from local authorities or other sources. And that isn't always refined. So it might be that the conveyancer sits at their desk and they suddenly receive reams and reams of paper relating to a development when their property is in phase 1 and they've got phases 1 to 10 in that development. Now, we wouldn't let that happen because we would take out the information that didn't relate to that property, so that what the conveyancer receives is a search which is relevant to that property, everything that that property needs, but not everything else on the development that that property doesn't need. So that's where the personal relationship and the human part of that report comes about, where we're able to interpret the data, find out the information, and we know who to call at the council. Is that phase 1 or phase 5? They can tell us at the council. So that's the service that we provide to our conveyancing clients, rather than that one size fits all approach.
Hamish, I was going to ask you, I know that of recent times, you certainly encouraged the association, IPSA itself, to be associated with a number of other third parties who specialize in either data refinement or specialist knowledge areas, such as about the environment, or even, as we did recently, surface water, any of these. Is that one of the core elements of being in IPSA, that you are surrounded by these specialists?
It is. It's a privilege that we have. I mean, over time, we've developed an association with a number of different people. But what we've actually sort of found, particularly more recently, since lockdown, that we've been able to sort of expand, if you like, what we're doing. I think what we started off as, we started off as purely independent personal search agents. That's what we did. That's what we were. Whereas now, many more of us are collaborators. We don't just work on that particular. So the more that we know, the more help, the more support we can actually provide to our solicitor clients that we were working with directly. In fact, it goes beyond solicitor clients. But one particular aspect I'd like to pick up on, which Heather mentioned, we're having a conversation of the 3 directors of IPSA the other day there. And one of the topics we were speaking about was this scraping of information. And what a lot of councils are doing now, they're putting in barriers to prevent this scraping of information. And in actual fact, it would have to be, wouldn't it? Was Heather that actually made comment of the fact, said the reason they're doing it is not to be obstructive. They want to protect their data to make it up to date, because it's all very well actually scraping information, but is it that information which is up to date? At least when we approach the council and say, please, can we investigate your records? They have a tendency to check out the records. So if people just go and scrape that information, which is even worse, because this is what people are trying to do within the whole conveyancing scenario now. Let's grab this information, let's scrape it from here, let's scrape it from there. Now, the beauty of it is, if we send in our information and somebody scrapes the information that we have sent in to put into a larger product, they know it's going to be accurate, because we've got a double check. We've got the council, we've taken that raw data from the council, we've investigated that raw data from the council, we've checked it against the local people, check it out if there's relative and it's important. Then we've refined that particular, so we've had a close look how it goes to the clients. So the amount of time that basically, as Heather was saying earlier, the amount of time we save conveyancers, we save solicitors by virtue of the work we do is very, very significant, really. And I mean, that's what I like about working with these different people, whether they be environmental providers, whether it be chancel repair, whether it be coal mining, any of these particular things. We know the people that provide those searches.
Heather, you're almost becoming the one-stop shop for this sort of thing, in a way.
We are. I mean, our aim is to help our members to be able to offer conveyancers a seamless transaction journey. So, you know, we can help them from the beginning of the transaction right through to the end, not personally ourselves, but by pointing them in the direction of firms that we trust, that are independent and that can help them, rather than them having to throw their lot in with one firm that will offer them everything,
Right.
which might not be what's best for their clients. So we're trying to help them to retain their independence and their choice, which is something which seems to be diminishing a lot in the industry. And it's important that conveyancers have choice as to which firms they use for which parts of the transaction.
I think choice here is critical. Hamish, would you care to take us home?
Well, I will indeed. I will indeed, because it's good to actually sort of go forward with an upbeat sort of way. That, I mean, we're so proud of what we're able to achieve within IPSA, and it's something the members that they really enjoy being part of, because of the working relationship that we have with each other and the way we can actually sort of trust each other. And because of that, it does make that journey for the buyer or the seller of a property, it makes that journey so much better as a consequence, because it's not exactly streamlined, because you can't streamline. It's quite complicated what different buyers want to know. So it's actually doing the best we can to make everybody's life simple. And more important, let's get that darn transaction, instead of taking 6 months, let's get it done in 6 or 8 weeks, because most of the time we can't guarantee. There are still councils that we trip up over because they've got challenges themselves, not because they're being awkward. They've got challenges, but we know which ones they are, and we can tell the clients about that. Mm-hmm. But it's the collective that makes the difference.
It is. It's the collective that brings the whole thing together. And dare I say it, it's the non-compete nature, that it's the right horse for the right course, depending on where in the country you want to work or where in the country you're interested in. I think that makes IPSA quite stand out. What I would also say to anyone watching is they're thoroughly nice people. I'm not an IPSA member. I'm just a slightly light-hearted gentleman in a funny hat. But what I would say is that I have been party to a number of their shindigs, and they're always very welcoming, very lovely, and they're only interested in the very best for you. And it goes not just people attending one of their get-togethers, but also people using their services. And I think that's absolutely imperative about any organization, is how they treat the members of the public who want to use their services, or the members of the judiciary who want to use their services. And I say it's very with kindness, with in positive intention, and with an idea of providing the right services as quickly as possible. None of us sitting around on something for 6 months. My goodness. I want to thank Heather Poole-Gleed for taking the time out today. and Hamish, of course, for having set this thing up in the first place. And to you watching, if you find this useful, please watch out. We've got more. Yes, we have more. Yes, on Thursday, we've got Property Quorum, lovely bun fight at about 10 o'clock. Please do come along. It should be great fun. And on Friday, arguably our most watched podcast at the moment, which is Cladding Matters. And not just about cladding, no. It's about safety in its entirety. And there's lots to be said about that. But hopefully I'll see you all very soon. Until next week, or until tomorrow, in fact, please keep your feet on the ground. Keep reaching for the stars. And at these troubled times, look after that mental health. Bye-bye now.
Thank you.